Back once again with Erika Brown, the publisher and editor of The Cricket, to talk all things Essex and Manchester. How are you, Erika?
Hey guys, how are you?
Good to see you again. Okay, right off the top, let's go right to the Board of Selectmen over in Essex and see what's happening there.
Yeah, I mean, briefly, they had their first meeting last week that I attended in person. They've been in, I think it was their second in-person kind of meeting where they do hybrid meetings with, you can call in or go in person. And I went in person. It was really great to be back. A couple things that happened that were noteworthy is one, the public safety building. Have you been reading about the controversy about the roof?
Yeah, the shingles.
Yeah, the shingles. Essentially, I think it's been sort of a non-controversy, although it's very meaningful. It's just a matter of money.
That's all?
Just a matter of money. No, it's a matter of who's going to pay for the mistake, because clearly it was a mistake. The architect said it was the general contractor. The general contractor said it was the architect. I think it's something like that. The roof has been buckling. Really, they're going to get down to the bottom of it. Somebody came last week to go, a third party has gotten involved and they're going to fix it. But the truth is, honestly, this is a $13 million building that has come in on time, on budget. And by the way, try to do something now in the construction industry. They got in right under the wire before, plywood went from $8 to $130 a sheet. So it's a minor issue. I mean, but the truth is, any building, you got to keep it sealed up. Otherwise, you let water in, it's a very bad thing. But the building's turned out fantastically. It really looks good. So that happened. Then also, I would say Dawn Burnham, who is jack of all trades. She's worn so many hats over the years, the last of which she retired from being assistant town clerk and the chairman of the Bicentennial Committee, because they celebrated their bicentennial in 2019. She was there for two things that involved those two roles. The first one, which she presented the town with a clock with the entire bicentennial committee, not the entire, but many of them were there with her to present the town and the BOS with a clock that's going to hang in commemoration of the bicentennial. And that was nice. And they reminded themselves they were happy that the bicentennial wasn't in 2020, right? Yeah. Like Manchester's, 375th. And then she also gave, and this is sort of goes back to her role that she used to do this for the, as assistant town clerk, she gave the Boston Post cane to the eldest resident in all of Essex, male or female, remember? And she just gave and presented the cane to Bonnie Jean Malcolm Brown. That's quite a name. She's 99 years old. She's an artist, a lifelong artist, a very successful one. And she's been living in Manchester, in Essex since 1996.
Erika, can you explain Elsinaios to me, please, and what's going on there?
Yes, this is something that was nothing, and then all of a sudden it was everything. This is Manchester, and now we're going over to the Landmark school campus. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. It kind of abuts the Brookwood School. Most people think of Landmark as being in Beverly Farms, right? Do you?
I do, yeah. I did not know, I did not associate it with Manchester.
Well, it is in Manchester, and since 1973, it's had an estate in Manchester. It's along Highland Avenue and on 127. It's a big, beautiful brick structure. It's where they keep, it's for staff housing and teacher housing. And it's an old estate from the early 1900s from Mr. and Mrs. William Hooper. And it has a tea house on it. Now, this is a very grand estate. The gardens there were very grand in their time, and Mr. and Mrs. Hooper were very grand in their time. Mr. Hooper was an 1880 graduate of Harvard, and his classmate was Theodore Roosevelt, and they were lifelong friends. So you can imagine the entertaining there.
Wow.
Well, Elsinaios.
Go on. I'm sorry. The tea house was busy. There's a lot happening in that tea house. Can we assume that?
Let me tell you, I'm going to read this for you because you just asked that, Heather. They entertained in this tea house and in their estate. They entertained Ellery Sedgwick, the editor of the Atlantic Monthly, J.P. Morgan, Secretary of the Navy under President Coolidge. His name was Charles Francis Adams. And it goes on and on. It's a list just like that. My favorite, and this is for you, Heather, Isabella Stewart Gardner herself was a frequent guest, and she apparently would always request baked potatoes and sausage. She was a big baked potatoes and sausage fan.
Who knew? Who knew?
Yeah.
So Elsenaeus, let's get back to Elsenaeus. Elsenaeus is a granite, it's a stunning structure, but it's utterly dilapidated. So it's a round, beautiful, ornate granite structure, granite masonry. It's got an inlay star in the floor that's marble and granite that's gorgeous. It's got a stunning, it looks to be about 10 feet high, soapstone carved mantelpiece for a fire. It's really, when you think of a tea house, it's not your everyday tea house, but it's also not your everyday project for rehabbing it, because it's going to take a lot to do it. So in the last minute, just before it was going to be raised last week, Sue Brown, the town planner for Manchester, acted as a hub, and she reached out to she was coordinating with the Women's Club, the Manchester Women's Club, the Historical Museum, the Historic District Commission, the CPC, the Conservation Preservation Trust. I mean, I'm sorry, that's not the right word. CPC.
Yeah, community preservation.
So,
yeah,
thank you.
Yes, yeah.
Which is tasked, among other things, with historic renovation, with public money, though. And here's where you get into the issue. You know, Landmark says we don't want to tear this down. I mean, the head of the facilities there, his name is David Selter, great guy. He said he's been there for 21 years. He's been trying to save it for 21 years. But they don't have the money. It's not their mission. That's what he said. You know, they're in education, and he'd love to have somebody do it. People have interest in doing it until they realize how complicated it is. And actually, getting back to something we were just talking about, he said, listen, if we could just raise enough money to do the roof, see, it's like Essex, do the roof and seal it in, then that'll sort of almost stop the bleeding. It'll stop the dilapidation while people figure it out. It's going to cost a lot of money to move it. If you bring CPC money, they have to restrict the property so that you have public access, because you're using public funds. So it's a complicated thing, and they're going to work it out, but it's a beautiful structure.
What's the roof made of?
I don't know, but I think it's slate. I think he mentioned that it was slate. I saw it from the inside, and just the rafters alone that are exposed are beautiful. And there's a non-matching wood from the inside looking up, which seems to indicate there was stained glass or some sort of glass in the sort of beautiful cupola. I think they might call that, right? Isn't that a cupola, sort of a round thing?
Heather?
Well, I think of a cupola as, like a little widow's walk. It
is a widow's walk. That's
yeah.
right. On top of maybe a church or something,
That's
or a seafaring home. It's got that round rotunda structure, and that's the roof. So there you go.
Sounds lovely. Worth preserving if you have a few million around.
Exactly. We're back to this. It's just a matter of money.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So I have a story for both of you. The last time I did comedy professionally was years ago. And I was auditioning for an improvisational show at the Comedy Connection at Faneuil Hall. And it was an improv show hosted by Kelsey Grammer that
No
never
way.
made it to air. Do we have a Kelsey Grammer story, Erika, to share?
That's a great lead-in.
Yeah.
We
Good
definitely
job,
do.
Corey.
Okay, I'm from Manchester. I'm going to say it's not a Kelsey Grammer story. It's a Tom Shanley story. All right, so this is a great story. Tom Shanley is from a local family in Manchester. His brother is my age, and I remember him. We were common friends. We had a bunch of friends in our 20s. So I've known Tom Shanley, or of him, for a very long time. He's the older brother who was always off in Hollywood doing his thing. So he is a long-time successful working actor in Los Angeles. And just saying that statement is actually saying a lot. It's very, very, very difficult to make a career, let alone a really successful career out in Hollywood. And Tom Shanley has done it. He returned, as he does regularly, to Manchester. He's a regular visitor because his parents still lived there. His mother was a lovely lady. She's passed, but she was really, no, she's beautiful, gracious, nice, and was an early aerobics instructor in town. But in any case, he has starred, these are his credits, on television: Dexter, Criminal Minds, CSI, NCIS, Hawaii Five-0, and then Melrose Place. I remember him in Melrose Place. If you remember that, he had a multi-episode arc on that show when it was at its peak. So, and then with movies, he's been in Courage Under Fire, Conspiracy Theory, Fever Pitch, and Get the Gringo with Mel Gibson. So he's legit. Now, he's always had a love of theater, and he does a lot of theater. So here's the story, and there's a little twist with his last trip home for 4th of July, which was just a couple weeks ago. He came home regularly, but he is about to be in a movie that's going to be released next month. It's called Charming the Hearts of Men. It's a period piece from 1964, and it stars Kelsey Grammer. So here we are, Kelsey Grammer. So he's in it with Kelsey Grammer. It's about the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and actually the process of inserting language about women in with African-American rights. So it's a really great, it also stars Sean Astin. It's got a really great cast. And Tom Shanley plays this character. It's so perfectly named. His name is Radford Lotz. He plays a misogynist, racist banker in the South. And here's the twist. He got his start, his first taste of professional acting. He always loved acting in high school and theater, the way many people do, young students. In 1979, he did his high school score project, which is the practicum you have to do to graduate in Massachusetts. He did his score project at the North Shore Music Theater in Beverly with the famous Circular Theater. Yeah. And the production at the time that he supported was Hamlet, starring a very young Kelsey Grammer.
Look at that.
Yes, it's amazing.
So, a Ruby appearance because of
right. You see that? Yeah, Ruby came in for Kelsey Grammer.
Yeah. That's a crazy story.
It is a crazy story. So he returned to the theater. I went with him. We met with the executive director, who was lovely. They had a really great sort of reunion. I asked him if Kelsey Grammer, when he worked with him, remembered, the 1979 production. And he said, of course. He said he was really, really, gracious and lovely. And he said, yeah, I do. And he mentioned it in a lighthearted way. Oh, hey, we've worked together before. But he also said, and this says a lot about Kelsey Grammer, he said that, when he was a young actor, he was just supporting the cast, but he said the ensemble used to do, they went to Singing Beach together, they'd go out on their off time together. And he said that Kelsey Grammer would, the character he played, he had to do a fight scene. And so he'd practice with Tom Shanley. And he said, I thought that was normal at the time, that actors would, work with just the young kids on set to practice things. He said, but it's not the case. And he's just a really gracious, awesome guy that gave me a great start.
Very nice.
Well, isn't Frasier back? Are we having
we're doing something like that.
Right? So, it's all Kelsey Grammer. I could use more Kelsey Grammer. And the other guy.
Yeah, I just remember that the character of Frasier. Do you remember the character of Frasier on Cheers? When he first came on, he was an utterly minor character, and he was an annoying, kind of pompous psychiatrist boyfriend. And he was so good that Frasier came of it.
Yeah, huge deal in there. Yeah, well, Tom Shanley got a lot further with Kelsey Grammer than I did. I can tell you that. So, great stuff this week, Erika. We will enjoy the week, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys.